And now, our feature presentation.
The best
in the world
is right here, right now.
Whether you like it or don't like it, pal, learn to love it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome.
All right, listen up.
Now it's our time to step forward. It's time to bring the NWA back into the spotlight.
I was thinking that it might be a good idea if you and I formed an alliance.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Attention, everyone. Welcome to the greatest wrestling program in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? Stop what you're doing and listen.
It's the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin, Frazier, DKM, and J-Cap.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a live version of the Alliance Guys podcast. We don't do this very often, but we're getting into the swing of things. We're trying to be cool like some of those other kids. We are here to talk NWA with you, the hashtag NWA fam. We're here to talk about the United Wrestling Network's Prime Time Live. That's the pay-per-view series that you can see every Tuesday night on Fight or on Demand or on DirecTV, and that comes on 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and we're here. DKM, we're here, and Woodland Goblin is here, and Mikey O'Shea is here. I don't know if you're still here, Mikey, but what's going on? Nice to see you, Woodland Goblin. How are you doing? DK? How are you, man? How are you doing?
I'm old.
Good week?
I survived it. Almost.
I mean, that's...
As long as I survive tomorrow.
I don't have anything to respond to that. You got me on that one. So this is a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance and the United Wrestling Network. We've been doing this, DK... I don't know if you're aware of this, but we've been doing this podcast since 2006. That means we've been doing a version of this podcast for 14 friggin' years.
I'm not that old.
Yeah. You are. That's the problem. That's my problem. We're all that problem. But 14 years. So again, this is we are covering Primetime Live here in the new season of the Alliance Guys podcast. We are efforting to do this live each and every week here Thursdays, and that would be 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Find which time zone you're in and figure it out. Woodland is doing well. That's good to hear. So, of course, I would like to bring to the attention that Primetime Live has been is the pay-per-view series that David Marquez has been putting into work for quite some time. Many people will know that Dave Marquez has been synonymous with the National Wrestling Alliance going back to around 2006, actually maybe even before then, but producing television such as the NWA Wrestling Showcase. Of course, everyone's familiar with the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Dave Scooby's in the house. What's going on, Dave Scooby? And that this is his latest incarnation. Now, of course, Dave Marquez was a part of NWA Power. He helped out in the back. Plus, he was, his consultant duties, of course. Plus, he was an onstage persona as the interviewer, the Gordon Soley, if you will. Dave would be the first one to tell you he's no Gordon Soley, but all the same, that's what he was efforting to accomplish. And, We recorded an episode last week and played it. We streamed it live, but it was previously recorded. We are live right now. And I think we could all agree that the Primetime Live series has been refreshing because we are getting NWA content. We are seeing our NWA champions defend against some high-level competition. Would you agree, DKM?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some good title defenses so far. 3. So, one for show, and the challengers have all been worthy challengers.
And the interesting thing about it is a lot of people were concerned that this would become a United Wrestling Network product that just had like a few NWA matches throughout the series. But they've averaged 2 NWA matches per show, and a NWA title's been defended on every episode up until next week's. But we'll talk about next week's episode next week, right?
That's the best time to talk about it.
So, I mean, we're coming off of an exceptional 90 minutes of television and action last week. If you guys watched the Primetime Live last week, that was headlined by Thunder Rosa versus Priscilla Kelly. You certainly got your money's worth. You certainly had some great action. There was 5 matches, but it didn't feel like it was just 5 matches. It felt bigger. It felt more epic. And this week, we have more than 5 matches. And before we even get into it, I'm going to say that this week's episode, to me, didn't live up to episode number 2. DK, would you agree or disagree with that?
I mean, of the 3 episodes, this was probably the weakest. It didn't have the technical glitches that the first one had, but I was able to go back and rewatch that one from a clean copy, and it was really good. This one struggled a little bit.
I would definitely say there was some opportunity that the show could have been a little bit better. Now, we've been talking about this. If you go to alliance-wrestling.com, we did a primer to kind of get you ready for some of the names that are associated with the show, some of the talents who are new to the NWA or you haven't seen the United Wrestling Network before. I try to get you caught up with some of the information of who these guys are. But the first match we have, well, I guess even before we get to that, we get the montage of promos again, and I really think that this is an excellent concept that the NWA, I should say the Primetime Live, if easy for me to say, is incorporating into the broadcast. I think it's phenomenal and a good way to introduce the talent to eyeballs that have never seen them before. You know, a guy like Chris Dickinson, before Primetime Live, I couldn't have pointed him out of a lineup, but now I know exactly who Chris Dickinson is, the Dirty Daddy, and they've efforted with these promos to kind of give you a lot of backstage, not so much backstage, but familiarity with the talent. Real Money Brothers this week, they're first up in the promo package. You know, it's only been 3 episodes so far, but they're the first tag team to have a second match. In fact, they're the first talents to have a second match on the show. And of course, they're taking on the United Wrestling Network Tag Team Champions. We'll get to that in a minute. You know, the Real Money Brothers faced a lot of criticism for the match that they had with the Friendship Farm, who last week I kept calling the Friendship Family. No, the Friendship Farm. And but the Real Money Brothers are the most winningest.
A lot of that was pointed to their opponents in that match.
Right. I don't think that the Real Money Brothers took any heat on that one. I just think that the match itself suffered because of who the opponents were. I don't feel like the Real Money Brothers were indicted on that too much. But again, we get that they are the most winningest tag team in all of Primetime Live, so they get a tag team shot this week. The next promo that's run is SoCal Distancing, who, again, last week I mistakenly called Social Distancing. So far I'm 0 for 2. And since their inception, a mysterious duo, if you guys are watching Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, you're familiar with the fact that SoCal Distancing distanced themselves from former leader of that entourage, Ray Rosas, and have been joined by James Logan, who was conspicuous by his absence on this program. There's something about that guy that's very, very familiar. I can't put my finger on it, but they welcome the audience to a new normal, and that's Andy Brown and again Adrian Quest. And that there's nothing of interest here in Primetime Live with the exception of SoCal Distancing. So, I mean, again, this is something that if you've never seen Championship Wrestling from Hollywood before, you at least are now introduced to the United Wrestling Network Tag Team Champions. Next up, we get Nicole Savoy, who she has the auspicious duties of replacing Serena Deeb in the match with Allison Kay. And I'm telling you, I think this was an even better opponent for Allison Kay. This is going to be a great showcase for both of these ladies. But the Queen of Suplexes vows that the former NWA World Champion will be getting up from these suplexes. And again, it's just, I love it because it's creating this familiarity. We're being introduced to these opponents that we might not have seen otherwise. Speaking of Chris Dickinson earlier, we get the Filthy Father, the Dirty Daddy. I mean, I just feel dirty saying these nicknames. He makes his third appearance for Primetime Live. Again, he's getting a second match here on United Wrestling Network's Primetime Live. And I think he's getting over well. I mean, he can cut a mean promo. He's got a great look. And, I think he's certainly in the running for one of the names that will be the breakout star of this program. But it bothers me that they keep referring to Long Beach, California as Los Angeles, California. Maybe that's just a SoCal thing, but that bugs the heck out of me.
And we get that a lot here. Every place is Dallas, and 90% of stuff that takes place outside of Dallas.
And that bothers me. It probably shouldn't, but it bothers me. And then next up we have the self-professed third-degree Mongrovian karate master, karate. I like Aaron Stevens a lot, but I think this gimmick has certainly ran its course. The NWA National Champion, he's all but pronounced himself the winner of this match. And these are the interesting thing about this pay-per-view, this particular pay-per-view. If you're a WWE fan, a longtime WWE fan, these are two of the most recognizable names on the roster because Damian Sandow is a former tag team champion with The Miz, and of course Trevor Murdoch is a former tag team champion with Lance Cade. So, I mean, in terms of visibility, these guys are two of the more profound athletes that are on the card. But at the end of the day, these guys are kind of new to fans who haven't watched the NWA before. They're new to the United Wrestling Network Primetime Live because this is such a new vehicle for Dave Marquez and company. So I wasn't expecting a whole lot, a lot of time trying to establish who these talents are. It's just kind of assumed that if you're watching this program, you're probably already familiar with them. But of course, they put Stevens behind the Mongrovian flag, which is the home of the masked wrestler, the Question Mark, from NWA Power. And I mean, it's kind of a nice little throwback to Power because it's just kind of tying these two. Again, this matchup is the first time that NWA Power has kind of been represented on this show. I mean, we've seen the talents of NWA Power, but this is a full-on feud storyline from built start to finish. Was built in NWA Power. I mean, I guess the finish is actually going to be displayed on episode 3 of Primetime Live, but it was a nice carryover. It's the first time we've seen something carry over from Power to the next show. And Thunder Rosa's here saying that Trevor Murdoch is the champ. And yes, champ, from one champ to the other champ, you can say that. And he is the champ, and we're happy that he's the champ. I'm happy that he's the champ. DK, are you happy that he's the champ?
I'm actually very happy he's the champ, and if people will go back to find some of our things where we were reviewing the TV show, I was well known for being a big supporter of Trevor Murdoch and wanting him to capture the title. So, I mean, I've been after him going for the title since it was on James Storm. And I'm very happy that this main evented. I'm very happy that he won the title, and I hope we see a lot more of him, on this show.
We'll get more into that in just a minute, because again, he certainly is just due. But one of the things that I want to point out, because we do have Thunder Rosa in the chat room, is that there was a lot of that NWA family, and I don't mean the fans, but I mean the talents that were a part of NWA Power, who were publicly rooting for Trevor Murdoch to win that title. And I mean, Thunder Rosa was quick to take to Twitter, as well as James Storm, who, is no longer under contract. But I mean, for a lot of us, he's still part of that NWA family. He's still the NWA Tag Team Champion. I thought that was really cool. And then we get Trevor Murdoch in the promo. I don't know whose idea it was to put him behind a broken down mobile home, but we had him in the trailer park, if you will. And he just said the same thing that he always says. He's here to basically just to kick ass and go home. So we'll see what happens when that match comes up. The first match of the night we get is the United Wrestling Network Tag Team Champions, and that's the SoCal Distancing versus the Real Money Brothers. I was surprised that this match opened up the show. DK, what were your thoughts on the tag team titles opening up Primetime Live?
Yeah, I was also a little bit surprised by it. Wasn't necessarily expecting it to be the first match on the card. That being said, my only exposure to the Real Money Bros was last week. And my only exposure to the tag team champions is I was semi-watching Championship Wrestling from Hollywood when Andy Brown won the Heritage title. And so you can figure out how far back that was. And so I wasn't overly familiar with any of them. I didn't have a team I was rooting for, so to speak. And it was a little confusing because, like, last week you would obviously say that Jarvis and the guy who I don't want to talk about were the, faces.
Yeah.
And Real Money Bros were more of the heels. This week's dynamic is obvious that SoCal Distancing are the heels, and so that kind of made the Money Brothers a face team. I know a lot of people say, heels and faces, we don't need those anymore. I'm not one of those people. Part of what gets you into wrestling is knowing who you want to cheer for and who you want to boo. I mean, it's just part of the game. And if you look at ratings across the big spectrum, you see that, we're not having just the biggest boom in wrestling right now. And I think this could actually be a part of it because you want to get emotionally invested. It's like trying to get emotionally invested in a movie or something. So I like to know who to cheer for and who to boo. This didn't really have it. As far as the match itself is concerned, wasn't my favorite. The thing, the concept behind the tag team match is tagging. I mean, that's where the excitement is. Who controls their opponent? Who can keep their opponent cut off? When can you get a hot tag, so to speak? And this kind of fell more into a lot of the modern day tag team wrestling. They wanted to all be in there together or be outside or have something going all the time. It was, if this had been a real sport, the referee would have disqualified them about 30 seconds in or thrown the match out. And so now your ref doesn't look, competent because they can't get control of the ring. There was a move in there where I'm sorry, I don't remember who the tag champions are, who the other champion is.
SoCal distancing.
But who's the other wrestler? There's Andy Brown. Who's the other guy?
Oh, Adrian Quest.
Okay. There was a thing in there with Adrian Quest where he came off the rope and one of the Real Money Bros socked him in the stomach. And before the punch even connected, he was basically doing a front flip where he lands on his back. And it's just like, I have been punched in the stomach and I have punched people in the stomach. You don't flip.
You just didn't do it hard enough, DK. You just didn't punch him hard enough.
I've crumbled some people, and some people have crumbled me. So, it's little things like that it's kind of like, okay, this is just guys out there doing stuff.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that has been a very strong point up until now is that these shows have been wrestling shows. I mean, you see wrestling. And this one leaned a little more on the sports entertainment side to me. Overall, I don't have anything against anybody that was in there. I won't say it was a bad match. It was just a match.
That's kind of the sentiment of the entire night. Now, I did want to throw out a few things because that's what this is kind of a recap show. But it was a bit weird that this match was opening because it was a title match. And I know in the old days, title matches were never like the opening match. They weren't always the main event, but they were hardly ever the opening match. The broadcast announcers added Blake Troop to the broadcasting booth, and I really liked Blake Troop on the call. He did add a sense of realism to the show. The points he made, I think, were pretty relevant. I think he did a good job. I know he does call the action in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood with Todd Kennelly, but I really felt like adding him into the booth made up for not having Joe Galley and had that fighter's perspective, and I think that kind of added something to the show. The Real Money Brothers are led to the ring by Floyd Mayweather's guy, Repo Rick. I have no idea who Repo Rick is, and I have no idea why I need to be excited about him. I don't feel like the Real Money Brothers needed anything more to get over. I don't think that adding to their entourage was really added much to the show, but apparently, someone in a higher pay grade than me thought that was a good move. So, who knows if he'll be back for the next time that they wrestle. Brown and Quest have had a lot of recent success in Hollywood, but the duo have been teaming since about 2016. Brown is a former Hollywood Heritage champion, like DKM alluded to. They were under the tutelage of Ray Rosas as part of a stable called Static. That antisocial triad dominated the ranks of Hollywood, with them basically capturing all the gold, with the exception of the United Wrestling Network TV title, because Ray Rosas was the dual champion of both Hollywood and of Arizona. And until recently, these guys were packed together. That changed recently when Andy Brown and Adrian Quest broke free from them. Individually, Brown and Young are solid in the ring. Both combine high-risk moves, but not, it's similarly in fashion to Kevin Martinson and Danny Limelight. Both men move around the ring very effortlessly. The Real Money Brothers clearly have a size advantage over the two, and you could see that in this match that became part of the story that they were telling. Some of this match was very believable, and some of it was kind of hokey. But at the end of the day, I didn't say this. I don't think this was a bad match. Just like DKM said, it wasn't my favorite match. I didn't fall in love with either team tonight. But I thought it was okay. I thought it was good enough, and I think it's a great win for Brown and Quest. It helps establish them as champions. I don't feel like the Real Money Brothers got hurt in this loss. I think they'll still be a good tag team. I can't wait to see what's next for them. And yeah, that's about it. It's the same formula. The show is kind of following the same formula that they had last week, where they go back to another backstage promo with Murdoch, and he's talking about like this might be his last opportunity to wrestle for the national title. DK, I'm sorry, I kind of skipped over it. Do you have anything more you'd like to add to the tag team title match?
I don't have anything to add to the match, but one of the things brought up, I will say that I've really enjoyed the announcing that they've had on Primetime Live.
Yeah.
So far in all three iterations, I agree with you that adding the guy that's a fighter, because he actually pointed out sometimes some of the not as serious moments, by saying he goes this is wrestling, MMA, if you've done that, like I said, you get disqualified, and things. But he comes across really well. He comes across really sharp, but he does not come across condescending.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed him. I thought he was great. And I've liked the people they've had in the booth so far. So I thought they've done an excellent job. So what was our next match that came up?
So the next match that comes up is Remy Marcel, the 86er, taking on Papadon. Now, this is a very different look for Remy Marcel. They pointed that out in the broadcast, but the last time I saw Marcel was when he was working in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. That was the Red Carpet Rumble 2017. He was one half of the Whirlwind Gentlemen, teaming with Jack Manley. Jack Manley, for those of you guys don't know who he is, he's been with Dave Marquez on and off for like the last, I want to say like 14 years. They were working together, or I shouldn't say he was working together, but he was a part of the old Inoki Dojo shows out in Santa Monica. For longtime fans of the NWA, before there was TV, Dave Marquez would do, they would have this weekly show in the Santa Monica Dojo, which was the evolution of what the original Inoki Dojo was. They would do these shows, they would tape them, and then they would put reviews of the show on YouTube. You could still find them if you go and look for like Santa Monica Dojo. And these shows would literally have, these were social distance shows before social distance shows. There would be like 20 people in the audience max. And you would have great talents. The first time I ever saw Finn Balor wrestle was in one of these venues. I saw Carl the Machine Gun Anderson, Rocky Romero, Ricky Reyes, T.J. Perkins, Bryan Danielson. These matches would have these, even a young Shinsuke Nakamura under a mask appeared at a few of these shows. So it was pretty cool to see all that. And but with that being said, it was where was I going with this? Oh, Jack Manley. Sorry.
The next match. I don't know where you went.
I was talking about Jack Manley, who was on these shows way back then. And Jack Manley's not even in this match, but his partner Remy Marcel is. So like I was getting to, Remy Marcel is a bit of a tag team specialist. The duo competed on high levels, winning tag team championships all across the West Coast. And that's the West Coast Wrestling Connection, Future Stars of Wrestling, and of course Paragon Pro Wrestling, which was also based out of Las Vegas. Their history kind of took them, their tag team ended up in China, not with Dave Marquez's group, but in China with the Oriental Wrestling Entertainment, where the duo was responsible for helping to train the talent that was there, as well as competing on some of those early cards in China. And so I think that was pretty cool that somebody like Remy Marcel, after putting in all this work, is having an opportunity to get showcased on Primetime Live. And then his opponent is Papadon. Longtime fans of the NWA know Papadon. He's held titles from NWA Shockwave, NWA Cyberspace. He's competed in Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators when they were back with the NWA. He competed in NWA Virginia. Really, Papadon is to East Coast wrestling as to, what Joey Ryan used to be to SoCal wrestling, and I mean that he was just everywhere, not that he did anything inappropriate with people. I should have said that.
You can't edit this one, Jay.
Yeah. Anyways, Papadon's few appearances out here in SoCal were related to AWS and the short-lived Wrestling Cares Association. But like I said, he's been a big deal for the Northeast for quite some time. And it was cool to see him out here. I know that he's been wanting to be a part of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood in the past, so it was good to see him in this show. And again, I don't think this was a bad match, but I wasn't overly excited about it either. It was entertaining. It told the story. You know, Papadon, they kept pointing out his 20-year history in pro wrestling. He was trained by Homicide, and you could see some of that grappling, some of the wrestling. Everything he did had meaning behind it. There was a point where Remy Marcel went to suplex Papadon, and Papadon, instead of, the leg lock blocking the suplex that you see a lot of wrestlers do, literally pushed the leg down, forcing Remy Marcel to a knee, allowing him to escape from the hold. And I thought, that's smart wrestling. That's where they bring a lot of realism into the sport. And I thought Papadon did a great job in doing that. DK, I know that this wasn't your favorite match either, but what did you think about this match?
This was a tale of two matches, and kind of like in the first match where, they brought the rapper out, some things don't work as well without a crowd. If there had been a crowd there, the rapper might have got popped. But in an empty arena, with those of us who have no idea who it is, it didn't matter. In this match, if I muted it and just watched the wrestling in it, I would have said, hey, this was a really good match, as far as the wrestling was concerned. But Papadon talked and talked and talked and talked loudly, and then loud some more, and then talked some more. And it was annoying, but not in the type of way that you would want it to be annoying. It was annoying in the type of way that I wanted to mute the thing and read comic books until it was over. And again, I suppose if there's a crowd there that you can react to and can kind of drown out how loud he was, it would have been okay. But it distracted me enough from the good wrestling that was taking place in the ring to where I wasn't enjoying the match itself. And again, I'll say the same thing as the tag team match. It wasn't a bad match, but it was just a match. And I'll go ahead and say this now. One of the things that, we got to remember is that since this is being hailed as a pay-per-view, it doesn't matter how cheap it is. But since this is being marketed as a pay-per-view, I'm shelling out money here to watch this. There's an expectation that I'm going to be seeing things that I'm not going to see on an episode of on an episode of Power or an episode of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And so far, these first two matches, I feel like I could have seen them on either show. And so it's like, you give me something special here, right? You're not giving me anything special.
Yeah. No, I have to agree with you on that. I mean, we did get something special later on in the night, but thus far, again, we spoke on this offline. I didn't have a connection to these matches. And I went ahead and watched these a second time to see if it was maybe me earlier, and maybe that if I watched it a second time I could find something that I really connected to. These two matches weren't it. And I do like Papadon as a wrestler. And Remy Marcel, again, I like him as a talent too. This match didn't grab me in. And I think that's probably the biggest my biggest complaint about the match is it didn't pull me in. As much as Papadon was talking to the audience and the home television audience, obviously, I just never got sucked into this match. Not how I would have wanted to. And again, that finish comes with a pile driver. It looked like death for Marcel, and that might have been the best part of the match is the finish, because that pile driver looked deadly. And but like I said, it was missing something. I felt like the entire time it was missing something. Up next, we got another promo from Chris Dickinson. Like, this guy gets more camera time than anyone else on the United Wrestling Network. His intensity is really kind of refreshing. Like, I don't remember the last time I've seen a wrestler this intense almost all the time. And he's very unhappy. He's talking about shit sandwiches and all that good stuff. I'm beginning to become a fan. The more I see him, the more I like him. What are your thoughts on the Dirty Daddy, DKM?
Make him sound like a porn star.
It does. It's the best and the worst at the same time.
Okay, first things first. He's growing on me like a fungus.
Fair.
Part of the problem is he points out things that are obvious to the audience as far as the negatives. But he does it as an arrogant asshole.
Right.
Sorry. PG-13 alert.
I think we're good. He can talk well. He can
yell pretty decently. And so, like I said, kind of like the toe fungus I have, he's growing on me. And for the record, I don't have toe fungus.
So he gets interrupted by one of my personal favorites, Austin Idol. I like Austin Idol. I have a good story about him, but we'll share that on another day. Yeah. I like Austin. No. But I do like Austin Idol. I was happy to see him. I keep saying Austin Idol, don't I? Jeez Louise.
You keep saying it. Don't let him.
Yeah, no. I like Anthony Idol. Excuse me. Anthony Idol. Excuse me. I apologize, Anthony. I enjoy Anthony Idol's work in Hollywood. He's a guy from SoCal. You see him all over the place. SoCal Pro, Empire Wrestling Federation. He was about to break into Hollywood about 3 years ago before an injury kind of put him on the shelf and took him off of TV. He's a guy I think has a lot of potential, a lot of untapped, unrealized potential. I did not want to see him in this match with Chris Dickinson because I knew what was going to happen. But he actually gave Chris Dickinson his first real challenge so far in Primetime Live, his second match. No disrespect intended for Jordan Cruz, who was essentially cannon fodder for Chris Dickinson on the first episode. You knew Anthony Idol wasn't going to get tossed around like that. You knew he wasn't going to be the fall guy as much. They did a good match. It was, two bigger guys. At least, Chris Dickinson isn't that big, but he is strong. I know, Ron. I know I said the wrong name, Ron. You might like Austin Idol better, but I never heard Anthony Idol offer a kayfabe cocktail to anybody. As the match progressed, I really felt like maybe that there was some smart wrestling going on, that they were telling a story that maybe only Hollywood fans would know, because Chris Dickinson spent a lot of time working over the right pectoral, right arm of Anthony Idol. And what many people might not know, and I was alluding to before, back in 2017, Idol was injured. He had tore his pec. It put him on the shelf, like I said, for about a year and a half. He worked through his recovery. Of course, he's back wrestling. But then you have this match where Chris Dickinson is working over that arm, and they're spending so much time telling the story about trying to injure that arm, working over that pectoral muscle. And I'm thinking, well, this is great. Like, look at this continuity that they're building. Look at this storytelling that they're doing. And then Anthony Idol goes for a chokeslam, thus negating all the arm work that Chris Dickinson put in, and that kind of that kind of killed the match for me right then and there. You did see Idol go for some Dusty-esque elbows. He's done that a long time. Specifically, I remember a match that he had with Zicky Dice in Hollywood, where he works that elbow, and Dickinson was able to get out of that, hit some really lethal strikes, and then ends the match with a Death Valley Driver. It's Dickinson's second victory in the Primetime Live, making him the most winningest wrestler in Primetime Live history. I really thought it was a solid performance for Idol. The match itself was good, not great, and again, it kept missing things. It just wasn't the same. It didn't have the same intensity. It didn't sink me in like I was hoping it would.
I was glad this time that he was at least facing a bigger guy that was you could accept as more of a challenge.
Yeah.
He does have a very Anderson-like wrestling mode of working over a body part or area and being hard and stiff. We talked a little bit offline about this, and I guess this is as good as time as any to bring it up. Part of the problem with this particular show, last week I said all the matches were good, they were close for the most part, and with rare exception, you weren't sure who was going to win. And, if they had the same match again this week, you wouldn't necessarily know if the same person was going to win. So this week was almost the opposite. 3 matches so far, 3 matches before the bell ever rang, I knew who was going to win. Dickinson looked good. That was the object of this match, and if we'd had 2 really good matches beforehand, I could have accepted this for what it was. But again, it was not a bad match, but it was a match. We got 3 of them in a row here. And we also got 3 matches I feel like I could have watched on NWA Power or Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And I'm paying for this. So, somebody come save me. Somebody come save me. And, what do you know? The next match up, kind of, not a bad thing.
Yeah, you bring up a good point in saying that, these are matches that maybe you wouldn't have to pay for. Like, these are matches that you could probably see on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And that's kind of disappointing because, like you said, this is a pay format. But to your point, again, it kind of gets, to me, it gets a lot better because we get the matchup that certainly, to me, rivaled the women's match last week, and that's Nicole Savoy challenging Allison Kay. Now, like we mentioned earlier, Nicole Savoy was a fill-in for Serena Deb, who was signed by AEW and then also at the same time was exposed to coronavirus, so she had to self-quarantine for 14 days, thus precluding her from tonight's matchup. And it's interestingly enough, Allison Kay happens to have history with Nicole Savoy, so it was just real. I mean, it was a good matchup, I thought. Allison Kay, for those who are unfamiliar, is a former Impact Knockouts champion. She's a former Global Wrestling Federation Women's Champion. At the Crockett Cup 2019, she defeated the former Women's Champion Santana Garrett to fill the vacancy for the NWA Women's World Championship. You know, we really had high expectations for Allison Kay with the NWA. I really thought she was going to be the dominant force of the NWA's women's wrestling division until Thunder Rosa, who I'm not sure if is still here, until Thunder Rosa wrestled her first match on NWA Power and changed the whole dynamic. But Allison Kay is a highly skilled wrestler. Watching her, again, you see the believability, you see the good strikes, the good counters. It's not sloppy wrestling. It was clean. It looked good. Nicole Savoy, she's worked matches in All Elite Wrestling very recently. She was teaming with Big Swole, as they say on commentary. She was a competitor in the Mae Young Classic. She's had appearances in Ring of Honor. She's currently the reigning women's champion for Pro Wrestling Revolution in Northern California. PWR used to have a loose affiliation with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, dating back to the old NWA Hollywood days. And there's actually been an influx of talent from Pro Wrestling Revolution into Championship Wrestling from Hollywood with the recent addition to Pablo Esco, who was supposed to take on Ray Rosas tonight. He wasn't here. It should also be pointed out that Nicole Savoy was trained by All Pro Wrestling in Northern California from the likes of Mike Modest, who is a bit of an indie wrestling legend back in the early 2000s, and the former NWA Heritage Champion, the old school Oliver John. So, again, I always like to point out who's trained these people because sometimes they have ties to the history of the National Wrestling Alliance. I think it's really cool when they do. And this match, to me, was just about as good of a match as you're going to see. A lot of technical strikes. The Queen of Suplexes lived up to her name, tossing Allison Kay around the ring. And I don't know if this comparison is lost on our viewers, but it really reminded me of like the mid-90s UWF International, the worked shoot wrestling. It was very stiff to me. I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but I felt like this was very reminiscent of those matches that would feature the likes of, Dr. Death, Steve Williams, Vader, and Ken Shamrock. DKM, are you familiar with those, the UWF, and what did you think of this matchup?
I have vague memories of it. I mean, it wasn't anywhere where I could watch, so I think I was having, I saw most of it later on, pixelated dial-up modems. As for the match itself, see, I loved it. I just loved it. Because, honestly, this is the type of wrestling I like. And I'll be honest with you, if you had told me that some of the best matches that, were tough, beat-em-up matches would feature Allison Kay, I probably would have told you, oh, what? You're kidding me, right?
Yeah.
Because basically all I knew about Allison Kay was her Impact GWF run.
And her pinky's up, right?
Yeah, pinky's up, and which she still does, and everything. And so, Impact has had its booking issues over the entire time of its existence, and so, I mean, my overall opinion of her, it wasn't high. I mean, I didn't think she had no talent or anything like that. It's just, I kind of just didn't have a high opinion.
Yeah.
And, I watched her matches with Thunder Rosa, the match where Thunder Rosa won the title. You ask anybody who watched that pay-per-view, that match stole the show. It was the best match on the show. rematch on Thunder. Just although it was shown a couple of weeks after, was actually filmed the day after, and they just both gave it all they had. And now this match tonight, first of all, Nicole Savoy, right?
Yeah.
This lady has potential if they find, the right people to work with her. I don't see how she's not already a major contender somewhere. And her fighting background, when she did the butt scoop, which, by the way, they didn't. Again, the commentators, they did an excellent job at describing what her fighting style was, how it works, what its background is. Just love these announcers, and loved this match. It was everything good wrestling match should be. And even though I basically kind of knew Allison Kay was going to win, in my heart, there were a couple of times in the match that I go, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I was wrong here, maybe. And so the end, it ended with a beautiful wrestling, roll up. And I don't know if she legit hurt her knee or not. It looked like she did.
Yeah.
But, and it may have been tweaked. She did manage to get up and get out of the ring, pretty well. But it was, that's how you want to be left. You want to be left going, wow, did she really get hurt? The pin was believable when Allison Kay came over and had her one leg trapped and down. You go, yeah, if I was in that position, I'd be pinned. And, it's just dirty mind. It's just, I don't really have any criticisms of it. It was a pay-per-view quality match on a pay-per-view.
Again, I thought they did a really good job, and like I said, this was probably the most inspired effort we saw all night. It was a really good match, and it definitely made me feel like, it pulled me in. It pulled me in. And, I watched it the first time, and I'll be honest, the first time I watched it, I didn't give it my full attention, and, it was just okay. But the more I watched it, the second time around, I started picking up on some of the nuances that I missed the first time. Again, working over the leg, the entire match. It wasn't just a happy accident that the end of the match ended up the way it did. There was a lot of work going into that, and like you said, I don't know if the knee injury was legit or if it was part of the show, but it sucked me in. It had me believing. And you're right, there was times where I felt like,
storytelling.
Yeah, storytelling. And there was times where it felt like the match could have went to Nicole Savoy. And, let's think about this. Let's be realistic. We know that Allison Kay is not a selfish wrestler. She's done a good job of helping groom that NWA Women's Division with Marty Bell, with, I forgot the other gal's name. Oh, gosh.
Don't look for help from me. I don't remember.
But anyways, they build up that division, and a lot of that was with Allison Kay being, willing to work with different people. So it just felt like in that matchup last night, or 2 nights ago, that they really did something special, something unique. I thought it was great. I'm glad that they had that match. But now, moving on, we have May Valentine in the back, and May Valentine joins the broadcast team. People who are unaware of May Valentine's role, Ron Gibson says Tasha Steele. She was there too, but I was thinking of the C sisters. I can't think of her name right now for the life of me. Ashley Vox. Woodland Gibson helped me out there. Ashley Vox. Yes. But again, that women's division started to kind of come into its own prior to, the restrictions from COVID-19 kind of putting the whole thing on kibosh. But getting back to May Valentine, she is now working with the broadcast team. Well, for those of you who think she was just arm candy for Royce Isaacs, she actually was training to be a wrestler. She spent some time at the Santino Bros Wrestling Academy. I guess her role in Primetime Live will be a backstage interviewer. And she interviews the reigning champion, Aaron Stevens. And again, Stevens doesn't really say a whole lot, and some of what he does say is unintelligible. It's kind of hard to even keep up with what he's saying. But it's just kind of the bravado coming from the champion. From the, I like Aaron Stevens. I like the heel work. I like the shtick. But again, this promo didn't do anything to sell me on this match. I was already kind of invested before that promo, and I continued to be invested after the promo. And that leads us to the next match, which is an Australian taking on...
Well,
what was that?
Let me say one thing here.
Yeah.
We gave May Valentine some hard times when we were doing our power reviews. I thought she did okay here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell she's still got stuff to learn, but hey, everybody starts somewhere. And I thought she did okay here. We gave her a hard time over her segment in Power. I don't remember anymore, Valentine something. And, here is the backstage interviews. I thought she did a good job. So,
I agreed.
Credits due.
Agreed. And not to sound like a jerk, I didn't have super high expectations, but she did fine. She was good in her role. She did well. But that leads us to the matchup from CC Chanel versus Ruby Reyes. Now, fans of the Women of Wrestling franchise may be familiar with both of these ladies because they both competed there. And Dave Marquez says she's no Dave Marquez, so I mean, there you go. From the horse's mouth right there. Now, I started doing my research on CC Chanel. I know she's been wrestling for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, but honestly, I couldn't find anything about her career prior to her arriving in the United States. So I don't know if she had any matches while she was still in Australia. I don't know if she was training with, EPW out in Perth or some of the promotions out in Adelaide, wherever she was at. But she did wrestle in Women of Wrestling as Princess Aussie. And she's been continuing her training with the... Say that again?
Original.
Yeah. She's been continuing her training with the Santino Brothers Wrestling Academy. You hear that name dropped a lot on these broadcasts, and there's a reason for that. And, I've said this many of times. That school, that particular wrestling school... Oh, Dave said she's from Queensland. Okay. Queensland. I thought I heard Adelaide, but okay, Queensland. Sorry,
I'll go with Dave.
Yeah, well, I don't question Dave Marquez. He's a wrestling genius. But that you hear the school dropped lots of times, the Santino Brothers Wrestling Academy, and for good reason. A lot of their wrestlers have gone on to do bigger and better things. We could go back to Douglas James, who was a former MLW champion. Or, I'm sorry, not a champion, but he wrestled for MLW. You could go back to Brody King, who's a former NWA Tag Team champion. You can go back to Jake Atlas, who recently signed with NXT. He's making an impact on that show. And, of course, I feel like I'm forgetting a bunch of people. Tyler Bateman, who's now in Ring of Honor. Dave Marquez says we've been questioning him all show. Dave, it's not questioning. It's just a difference of opinion. We loved, I think I could speak for DKM and pretty much anyone that watched episode 2 was really the benchmark of what great wrestling is. I mean, we were blown away with the pacing, with the storytelling, the talent involved. Everything on episode 2 was A+. I'm not saying that this show was not good. It was good. I just don't feel like it was as good. And Dave is now Dave is saying same, but he doesn't understand that we do appreciate the show that he's putting out, and we do enjoy it. And if we didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't be talking about it.
I was going to save this for the end, but I'll go ahead and say it now. Hey, look, though, if this was number 3 of the 3 shows they did, and, if you'd rank this one third, it is still a billion times better than most of the garbage that's out there on TV now. All right? Plain and simple. I don't like Raw. I don't like SmackDown. I don't like AEW. I don't like Impact. I have enjoyed the ROH Pure Tournament, which is a surprise for me because I'm not really a big fan of gimmick-style matches like that. But I've enjoyed the way they've done that. And I have enjoyed all 3 shows. I mean, if I was there, by Dave, I'd buy him a drink or pat him on the back or, whatever. You're doing an excellent job. That simple.
I mean, and let's take this back just for a second. I don't even know if Dave is still here watching, but let's pull it back just for a second. What Dave has been able to do is kind of recreate the formula that TNA started off with, a weekly pay-per-view series. That's a hard sell when so many options are out there that are free. But I will say this, that I am very happy with the money that I've spent on this series. I would definitely buy that 4 package again if it comes up for the next 4 episodes. And I haven't even seen episode 4 yet. And I bought those episodes before most of these matches were even announced, based on Dave Marquez's ability to put on a good show. The production has been phenomenal, with a few hiccups here and there. But again, he's working with the newer staff. Not everyone who is holding a camera right now has worked for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood in the past. Dave is directing these shows, and you have some of these cameramen. They're used to shooting esports, where there isn't a whole lot of movement or activity. Okay, go film this guy. All right, now go film this guy. And they're out there actually trying to film professional wrestling, which, as we all know, is a very active sport, very competitive, and moves around quite frequently. So, I mean, some of these guys who are more used to stationary type filming are now filming pro wrestling. I think they're doing a great job, and I think there are going to be some hiccups along the way. The storytelling for the show is still really good. And to your point, what DK just said, there's been times where the show hasn't been as good as the other 2 episodes, but that's not to say that it's still not a very good show, and we're definitely appreciative of the value that we're getting from what we're spending. Do you agree, DK?
No, absolutely. And the production has been great. I mean, if you hadn't just said that, I wouldn't even know that. I mean, I've never even sat there and thought, there's been big issues with the, with the cameraman. I can think of maybe 2 things in 3 episodes where I go, oh, that was probably a missed shot or a missed opportunity or whatever. But, I mean, oh my God. Those are every show ever. I mean, you watch any of the live other shows and you'll go, well, they, camera was in the wrong spot. It wasn't showing the right thing at that particular moment. It's live. Dave's doing an excellent job.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, you can't argue with me on it, and I know you're not, but anybody, you can't argue with me on it because that's so true. Dave Marquez is doing an excellent job. I tip my hat.
As you're saying that, Dave just typed in the screen, "Relax, I'm cool," and then put up a beer. So I guess he knows that we do appreciate the sport. And then Ron Gibson jumped in saying, "You shouldn't have to explain that you appreciate it because it's your love of the product that has you talking." That's true. And then also we have Woodland Goblin saying that he enjoyed the 3rd episode, and he also says that he would definitely like to see the Viperous versus Rays. And he also points out again that, Dave, we all love the Viperous, just so you know, thanks. Now, I consider this match with CC Chanel to be one of my good friends, Rays, Ruby Rays. Her return to the United Wrestling Network, as she in the past has competed for Championship Wrestling from Arizona. She was undefeated as a singles competitor in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. She's the first woman to enter the Red Carpet Rumble, just beating out Vicky Guerrero, who lost her spot when she was in it a few years back. She was the equal opportunity ass kicker and won the first ever intergender match in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I'm talking about Ruby Reyes, another product from the Santino Brothers Wrestling Academy. And again, a close personal friend. I do enjoy me a good Reyes ass kicking match. And this is what we got here. I think they did a good job of telling the story of CC Chanel, who was really hungry, and I would say really looking for an opportunity to prove her worth against a veteran who really didn't have time for those shenanigans. Todd Kenley indicates that Alyssa points out that CC has a kickboxing background, and you see some really clean strikes on Reyes. Again, I was surprised because I hadn't seen a whole lot of CC Chanel. I know she's in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, but she definitely had some good strikes to her. But this was, again, like, size and strength and patience versus agility and quickness. A couple times CC tried to go for like a butterfly maneuver, whether it be a pedigree or a tiger suplex or tiger driver. I didn't really understand why, when clearly her opponent was just too big. And of course the match ends with when Reyes inverts a butterfly lock into the tombstone pile driver. And this match actually was a lot more competitive than I would have liked, but that's because I'm a Reyes fan and I thought Reyes should have just squashed her. But CC got in a lot of great offense. She looks like a Spitfire. I think that she's going to be someone to watch again in the women's division. That's shaping up to be pretty solid in United Wrestling Network. I mean, with the introduction of Allison Kay, Nicole Savoy tonight, we have Ruby Reyes, we have CC Chanel, we have Heather Monroe, Camille, and of course the women's world champion, Thunder Rosa. This division is certainly shaping up. Reyes walks away with the victory, and you have to wonder if that puts her into world title contention for Thunder Rosa. DK, what did you think of this match?
I almost wish that this match had been before the other ladies' match, because I enjoyed this match, but compared to the one previously, it wasn't as, I don't know what the right word is, exciting or breathtaking or whatever. But when it just came to the match itself in isolation, I enjoyed it. I mean, nothing about CC. Unlike Jay, I don't necessarily do a lot of research on some of these wrestlers, and so a lot of times it's the first time they are on the show, it's the first time I see them or hear about them. And I've seen Ruby Reyes in the past, and I've always liked her. So, like you, I was surprised it was competitive as well. This was a match that reminded me of last week's matches. Yes, Reyes won, but I thought CC looked strong coming out of it. I thought she looked competitive coming out of it. It was, I don't have any complaints about the match. I will say that behind the back tombstone pile driver looked wicked. I mean, again, it was one of those things that at the end I'm like holding my neck and going, oh my gosh, was that real? Did she actually, drop her on her head? And, the answer was no. And when you watched it in slow motion and stuff like that, you know what you're looking for, you could tell. But man, when it first hit, I was just like, oh my gosh. And, hey, it was a good match.
I want to point out, Dave Scooby says you got 5 to 7 ladies that can go in this division, and I agree. And then a Woodland Goblin says, he's been pointing out Viper's all night, but he also pointed out Lacey Ryan too. Lacey Ryan has been having a feud with Heather Monroe in Hollywood. So Yeah, I mean, look, the women's division's in good hands in Primetime Live. I think Dave has got something good going for him right now, and I'm sure that it's going to continue to be good for the Primetime Live, and hopefully we'll see some more solid challenges to the women's division. And I kind of lost my place here, so give me just a second. But we do have some more wrestling. We have a lot more wrestling, actually, and the next match is Jack Cartwright versus formerly known as the Hobo, Robert Baines. Now, this might have been the match that I could have done without. And Jack Cartwright seems to be very exciting in his wrestling. He's definitely the definition of flippy-dippy wrestler, though. And I mean, I think maybe that's intentional. Because, I mean, I don't think he could do a headlock without doing a backflip before it. I don't know a whole lot about Jack Cartwright. I do know a whole lot about Robert Baines. He's a former Hollywood Heritage champion, defeating Ricky Mandel a couple of years back. He's a former United Wrestling Network tag team champion with Jervis Cottonbelly. They were the Friendship Express. Pretty solid tag team for some time. I don't know. We were just talking about second guessing Dave, and I'm sure he's going to not be happy with this one. But I think I would have rather seen Jack Cartwright get crushed by Chris Dickinson. And I think I would have rather seen Robert Baines versus Anthony Idol in this match. Again, it was good for what it was. This match was there to establish Robert Baines. He got a victory. I don't have much more to say about the match than that. DK, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, that's about
it. And again, I want to point out that I didn't feel like there was anything bad on the show. Like, this wasn't a bad match. I didn't go, ooh, what a piece of steaming crap that was. Like, nothing on the card was bad. I just felt like there were other matches that might have been a little bit more fun for me. Or, I don't know. This just didn't do it for me. Dave Scooby said they need to bring in Heather and Lacey to Primetime Live if Nico doesn't want women's wrestling on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And again, if you're watching Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, you know Nico Marquez, the rogue son of Dave Marquez, who is a minority owner in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, is looking to end the women's division in Hollywood. If they do, I mean, there's certainly a good place for them to go here on Primetime Live. But that remains to be seen. So now we get to the main event. This is the matchup we've all been waiting for. What was that?
So you're not going to let me talk about the other match?
Oh, I thought that was all there was to say about it. You go right ahead.
That was pretty much all there was to say, except I'll say this. I'm going to give it a left-handed compliment, but it kind of came out of nowhere for me. I had no idea the match was going to happen or take place. So I was in shock when it was announced. I liked the Hobo. I haven't been a big fan of Robert Baines. So I had absolutely positively very extremely low expectations for this match.
And you weren't disappointed.
And maybe because of that, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Okay.
And again, I wasn't expecting to enjoy it at all. So, but yeah, I mean, going back to what we said about some of the early matches, it was kind of like, yeah, I could probably see this on one of the other shows. I don't know that I needed to see it on pay-per-view, but just as far as being able to enjoy it, yeah, I enjoyed it more than I thought. It did not. It beat my low expectations, and I'm not going to tell you I loved it. I'm not going to tell you I hated it.
And again, that's kind of the hallmark of this episode. I didn't hate anything, but there's certainly things I liked better than others. that brings us to the main event. If you've been a fan of NWA Power, if that was your introduction, it's kind of funny, and I just as a side, today marks the 3-year anniversary that Billy Corgan's NWA took the reins from the old to the new. And it's kind of fitting that we're, 3 years ago people thought, what did Billy Corgan buy? What did he get with the NWA? And here we are. There you have a group of fans who are still clamoring to get NWA Power back. You have this new breed of fans who are watching Primetime Live and loving the NWA Championship matches that we're getting week in and week out. Real quick, Ron Gibson says, same, I was a fan of the hobo. I respect the, I can't say that word, daring do to make such a dramatic switch of characters, but it's hard to love Baines. I'm sorry, Ron, you're gonna have to dumb it down for me a little bit. I don't know what that word is. Daring do? I know Ron is a scholar and a gentleman, but I don't understand that word, so I'm gonna have to just leave a comment below. But this is the match that really had tied NWA Power to Primetime Live. This brought the two universes together. And I know that sounds silly, right? It sounds silly. You're bringing two universes together. What are you talking about? But I mean, up until this moment, these worlds didn't really cross-connect. Ron says courage. Okay. Thank you, Ron. I'm going to write that down so I can remember it for later. Well, Ron said it's just courage, so I'll go with that. I trust Ron.
I Googled it.
Fair enough. But so again, this is the first time that we had a storyline from NWA Power come to Primetime Live. I mean, we had Eli Drake come to Primetime Live. There was no mention of the NWA tag titles, no mention of him and James Storm as a tag team. We had the world's heavyweight champion Nick Aldis come to Primetime Live, and he didn't face somebody from the NWA. He faced the Miracle Mike Bennett, who had never performed on an episode of NWA Power. Then we had the women's championship match with Thunder Rosa, again taking on somebody who never wrestled for the NWA prior to this. So this was the first time you actually had an NWA champion defend against an NWA wrestler. You actually had an NWA match, both opponent and challenger. You had the title on the line, the Heritage title. And again, this feud was built up for weeks on NWA Power. This match was supposed to take place at Crockett Cup 2019. Of course, due to COVID, that didn't happen. Dave Marquez gave this match... What was that?
2020.
Excuse me, 2020. Gosh, that's how long we've been in COVID-19, that I'm still stuck in the wrong year. Dave Marquez brought this match to Primetime Live, to United Wrestling Network, gave it a home, and I'm grateful that we got it, because this was one of those feel-good moments. Trevor Murdoch has been working with Dave Marquez since the beginning of time. Trevor Murdoch was one of the standouts of World Legion Wrestling, which became World League Wrestling, which, if you listen to my interview with Dave Marquez, you'll know that Dave Marquez, along with Gordon Soley and Harley Race, formed WLW. Trevor Murdoch, again, worked with the NWA back in the early TNA days, when it was NWA TNA, as Stand Up, part of the Dupp brothers, Bo Dupp and Stand Up. Trevor Murdoch would work again for the NWA with David Marquez, oddly enough, with the NWA Pro Wrestling Showcase at the Columbia Square Studios in Hollywood, California, and he and Lance Cade would challenge the likes of the Skull Crushers for the NWA World Tag Team titles, never getting an opportunity to actually have that match for the belts. But we would get later we would have Trevor Murdoch tour North America with the NWA Pro Wrestling shows, the Pro Wrestling Summits that they would do in British Columbia, in the Pacific West and the Southwest, and all points in between where Dave Marquez was running these shows. Trevor Murdoch was on these events. So it's fitting that 1 year after NWA Power started, that Trevor Murdoch would show up in Long Beach, put the boots to Aaron Stevens, and become your new NWA National Heavyweight Champion. What were your thoughts on that match, DKM?
I thought maybe the Allison Savoy match would steal the show. And I was for me, this was the match of the night. Two big old boys, two hosses. I think people forget, we've talked about this before, when talking about Aaron Stevens and power. He's a big man. He matches up well with Murdoch. They hit each other. And I really enjoyed it. It was a throwback to some of my younger days. And I'm a huge Trevor Murdoch fan, which, if you've listened to any of these podcasts when we're talking about them, should not be a surprise or secret to anybody. And I was extremely happy to see him, get the win, and again get the win with a, pretty good wrestling move. For me, not only the best match on the night, but one of the top matches of the 3 episodes. So it left me happy.
Same thing. And real quick, I want to say good night, Ron. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, this was a point in the show where, again, there was so much invested for longtime NWA fans who joined the NWA Power phenomenon and crossover here. This was a match that had a lot of meaning, and I felt like both competitors they put on a great show. Having Aaron Stevens be just as underhanded as he always is, using the stage light to blind Trevor Murdoch and then kick him in the knee, and while the referee, who I guess is just doing his house cleaning, keeping things up, putting the light back, Aaron Stevens takes advantage and goes straight for the groin to give him a kick, sending him into into Pain City. I felt there was great storytelling here, and Aaron Stevens never shedded that he would do anything to win the match. He never shedded that persona that he was not above cheating, that he would do anything to hold on to that title. And Trevor Murdoch proved that he's tough as nails. He's double tough. And even when a more intense and more aggressive Aaron Stevens, appeared here in Primetime Live, he still never took a step back. And Trevor Murdoch, again, walks away with the national championship. He, in his excitement, called himself a world champion, but I'll forgive him. I know he's excited. But ultimately, this was the highlight of the night. It was probably the most feel-good moment in all of the Primetime Live shows so far. And I was happy to see Trevor Murdoch win that title. I don't know what that means for Aaron Stevens going forward, and I just hope that means we get to see more Trevor Murdoch on Primetime Live. But it was a title match that needed to happen. It was a match that delivered what we were expecting. It was a pay-per-view level match, and I was happy with it. Did you have anything else you want to add to that, DK?
Hey, you want the crowd to go home happy, and that's what happened. And I hope this isn't, the national champions haven't necessarily had the longest reigns, and I hope Trevor Murdoch has the ability to establish himself as a, good fighting champion.
It's funny that you point that out, because the national championship has been the title that's changed hands the most since Billy Corgan's NWA has relaunched. So you're 100% right. It would be good to see him try to lock it down for a bit and see how dominant of a national champion he can be. Of course, we know next week on the pay-per-view, this will be the 4th episode. This will wrap up the first 4 bundle package. No word yet if Fight TV is going to offer another 4-pack, but I'm pulling my fingers. I'm crossing my fingers, hoping that they do. We're going to get Max Caster taking on Chris Dickinson. We have Brian Idol, who I've never seen before, taking on Levi Shapiro with his manager, your favorite, Howdy Price. And I don't know if this is the main event, but we have Zicky Dice and a mystery partner. Taking on the Pope. What? The Pope and Watts. I don't know. I'm kind of excited about that pairing of the Pope and Watts. And, who could be Zicky Dice's mystery partner?
It's a mystery.
What if it was a question mark?
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery. You can still order the replay for $7.99 on the Fight TV app. Of course, it's available on demand and on DirecTV. I think the price is $8.99. I'm not exactly sure. You'll have to check that out for yourself. Again, overall, good show, good solid effort. I can't wait to see what happens next week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. DKM, we're going to wrap things up here. If people want to follow you on social media, how can they find you? Where can they get your hot wrestling takes?
I don't really follow me on social media. Their lives would be really sad. But if you do want to get my takes on wrestling, occasionally politics and science, you can follow me at DKMFWTX for Twitter.
And of course, you can follow me on all social medias at the Alliance Blog. And that's, you're watching, if you're watching us right now, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitch.tv, and we're on Facebook Live. So we've got your bases covered here. This is going forward. We're going to be trying to do this live every week. Next week, we will be joined by former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion Kevin Frazier. He is a part of the Alliance Guys family. He will be here next week. That title right there. What a beauty. And of course, coming soon, and I mean real soon, you're going to see our NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship perspective. Oh, that's such a pretty belt. Pound for pound. That's coming soon, guys. I know I've been talking about it for weeks. We've been working on it for weeks. We're planning to release it very, very soon. DKM is looking for another junior heavyweight title to showcase. Oh my God, the Cloverleaf belt. That's my favorite. I didn't know you had that. That's great. What else you got, DK? Is that it for now?
That's it for now.
Pound for pound, the best division around. That's coming soon to all these Alliance-Wrestling.com affiliated media. Please join us then. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. We want to get more of this interaction. We want to see more people here in the chat room. And again, we have such a great time. Tomorrow, Friday, at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 Pacific on Instagram Live, I will join Will Martin, and we talk a little bit of the Friday Hot Tag. We're going to be talking about that NWA National Championship and its champion, Trevor Murdoch. And then on Tuesday is another pre-party with me, J-Cal, and we'll be talking about what's coming up for Primetime Live. We really appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. And, well, that's going to do it for us. We'll see you guys at the matches. And that's where I'm supposed to hit this button right now that ends the show. Wait, this button right here that ends the show.
Figure it out.